Hi, I'm Matt Egol, host of the CX and Culture Connection, the podcast for leaders looking to drive an impact by focusing on customer experience and culture together. I'm really excited to be here today with two of my friends and colleagues. We're going to share some more information about a community that we're launching together called CX4Rocks. And Sean Albertson is the founder and CEO of CX4Rocks. And you may have recall Sean from episode 25 when we talked about 4Rocks, his book, for which I did a book review on the JourneySpark website. So thanks for coming back, Sean.
Yeah, good. Thanks for having me back. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and also Marc Mandel, who's the founder of Wow Moments. And I was recently on Marc's podcast, which is CX Tales from the Trenches. Where he's going to be part of the community that we're going to tell you about together as well today.
Thanks for letting me hang out with you guys. Good to be here.
Always fun. And Marc and Sean are two of my colleagues that I've enjoyed hanging out with at a lot of the CXBA events. That's where I think I've spent most of the time with you guys more recently. So it's good to have you guys on the podcast, and let's dig in. So the community I mentioned, CX4Rocks, is a fun name. You can learn more about it at www.cxontherocks.com, like you can see on screen. This is the first of several episodes where I'm going to have on some of the experts in the community that are going to be engaging on a monthly basis starting in the new year. It's a community you can sign up for on the site, and we're going to curate topics, dig in with some interactive discussion, and really move the industry forward together. Really kudos for Sean for organizing us and getting us together. I'm glad to be a part of that with Marc and others. So you'll keep an eye out for future episodes where we have some of the other experts on as well. Sean, just to get us going, do you want to share a little bit more about the impetus for launching the community and what sparked the idea for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, again, thanks for having me. We're all in customer experience. And, over the last year plus, maybe year and a half, we've seen CX changing, like massive changes in our business, including layoffs and things of that nature, as we, my network is full of them. And so talking with experts like, Marc and Matt and others, we all have kind of come to this realization that, man, customer experience is kind of in trouble. There's some changes going on that fundamentally are shifting how businesses attack customer experience, how they think about it, and ultimately how they execute on it. And so for me, knowing that, and I'm a little bit of a, rocks focus, my book and my company, but I just realized that things are kind of on the rocks. Things are kind of rough right now for us in CX. And so the impetus for this program is to bring in customer experience practitioners and not just have a community where they could have a Slack channel or something like that, but literally have access to experts to help them through this transition, through this evolution, if you will, of customer experience so that they as practitioners can evolve with it and so that other executives can learn where is it going and build that into their own program. So that was kind of the reason for it.
I think the name, other than being fun, like when I first think of CX4Rocks, I think of it's like a cocktail network, but then it also has the double meaning of like it's on the rocks. And I actually think, and we talked about this within the community. We had a number of roundtable discussions that Sean hosted. You can find the 3 different roundtable discussions with the different experts on the CX4Rocks website. So there's a lot of additional content that you can check out there as well. And in the discussion I was part of with, and Marc and I were both part of that same roundtable. What I remember is this kind of tale of two cities story, best of times, worst of times. I think one of the other panelists used that phrase. But I think there's something going on here with, on the one hand, there's a lot of momentum for, if you take a kind of long wave, long trend view, that experience is still got a lot of wind in the sails as a focus area. And we'd like to talk about X as opposed to CX. Like Xers broadly is brand experience, customer experience, employee experience, user experience. Experience is still the lifeblood of the economy. And companies are still looking to invest in experience as a winning strategy, bringing together product, commerce, marketing, service all together. But so there's that wind in the sails, but at the same time, too many Xers, too many people have focused on chasing surveys or chasing pain points or break fix bolt-on approaches. And as a result, in an environment where data and tech are in this massive upswing, if companies are not seeing near-term payoff on their experience investments, it gets sucked into other parts of the company because people are always fighting over resources. So if you don't have a clear outcome you're driving, you're at risk of having your CX team getting pulled into another group in the company. That doesn't mean they're not investing in experience. It means that someone else has grabbed the resources.
Yeah, and I think one of the things to add to that is that a lot of customer experience professionals are accidental in nature. They were great in the contact center. They were really solid in marketing analytics. And so somebody said, go do CX. Well, they went into it with a limited understanding of what it really means. And customer experience, as we all know, can use it. You talk to different companies, they think of it completely differently. One is, it's all about digital. The other, it's all about the contact center, and so the interpretation, it's kind of like AI. AI and CX are the two most abused initials in business, and they never mean the same thing. And so there's that challenge of really finding those right components. And again, that's where I think we have a lot of opportunity, because tech is coming, AI is coming, and it's more about data now and more about true actionable insights and return on investment than ever before. And I know, Mark, you brought up a whole thing about like return on investment, when we had one of those panels, maybe jump into that a little bit.
Totally. For me, I'm sitting here thinking that the change is very evident. And what I'm seeing out there is a couple of shifts. The first shift is going from activity to outcomes. When a lot of these organizations inside these companies would be rewarded in the past to measure their internal successes based on tactics and activities. I did this. I made this. We implemented new software. Aren't we terrific? And at the end of the day, you're going to get, in reality, very limited return on investment if you don't treat the technology investment as it can't become part of the ends. It has to be part of the means. Right? Technology is an input. It's an ingredient. It's a helper. But to say that you are, you're measuring your success criteria on the deployment of a new tool, in this day and age, you're kidding yourself if you think you're going to be successful there. And I think that in terms of outcomes, the only outcome that really matters these days, from what I'm seeing, is financial impact. To say I've gotten 9 NPS points, or my CSAT is up, or my effort is better, it's helpful. But if you go to your CFO and say, I need another check, he's going to say, well, how many dollars is this check going to get me? And if you're not in a position to answer the question about financial impact, you are going to have a harder and harder time getting funded, and harder time, into an extreme case, keeping your job.
Well, it's a double whammy, like you're describing, Mark, that it's an opportunity and a challenge here. But the double whammy is, one, if you don't demonstrate outcomes, you won't get the resources you need. And second, there's increased emphasis right now on data-driven approaches, analytical-driven approaches, tech-enabled approaches. So if you're not conversant with and helping lead the charge on some of these new approaches in a way that delivers outcomes, you'll lose resources. And let me first also just emphasize, if you like these ideas, and we're going to get a lot more great ideas from folks like Sean and Mark, I encourage you guys all to like and subscribe to the podcast. Do the same with Mark's, but just that way you won't miss any episodes or miss any content. And then we'll be sure to bring you additional thoughts from other experts in the community. And also you can join the monthly community meetings by signing up on the CX on the Rocks website. So that's the interruption plug so I can drive my own metrics. But, let's get back to the outcomes.
I'll just conclude what I was thinking, because it's a little contrarian of a view. I think there is an increased interest in technology because technology is becoming increasingly powerful and impact-oriented. But I think it's still on the people who drive the business to adapt their ways and change those ways in a way that gets a different outcome. I think ultimately, if we're not thinking of customer experience work as a change management problem, and it's just really a technology thing, I think we're cutting ourselves way too short. And that we need to understand that this is about changing our culture, changing our process, in some cases, changing our people. And it's not just implementing the latest, shiniest tool.
Yeah, I know that I talk a lot about that when I do my speaking on stage. It's in this order: people, process, then platform. Because again, culture is at the core, because customer experience really is everyone's responsibility at your company. Everyone either contributes positively or negatively to the experience. Even if they're in a back room and they never leave their cubicle, they're still part of that. But the challenge is for the organization, when it's everyone's responsibility, it's really no one's responsibility. And so this is where the new Xer, and I like that better. And in fact, I've even been starting to use some of that, Matt, like, XA, experience analytics or experience insights, et cetera, because the reality then is the new practitioner, whatever we end up called, if CX actually gets a bullet in the term and we call ourselves something different, whatever it is, this practitioner, they are a collaborator, they are an absolute influencer, they are an analyst, they are a technologist at the core, understanding that, because they're the ones maybe not in charge, but they're helping coordinate their organization for the purpose of creating better customer experiences through all the different contact channels we've got.
You both have highlighted the importance of culture, which I want to say thank you, because it's the name of the podcast and because it's the name of my book. Both my book and podcast are called The CX and Culture Connection. And I really am passionate about this. This is the hat I'm going to wear in the community, is the connection between culture and CX. Mark's a technologist. Sean is, wearing the analytics hat. We all wear multiple hats, but we're going to play a particular focal role in the community to bring a specific voice into the community. So I'm, excited to be an advocate and Sherpa on culture and CX and how they come together and team with the other experts to bring the most value to the community members. Culture ultimately is about behavior. It's about mindsets, behaviors, skills, but behavior is the most important of them. Is a theme I've talked about a lot on the podcast with guests. And I like to think that there's both direct and indirect ways behaviors show up and impact the customer experience and the experience more broadly. The direct impact is the one that's more obvious, which is the way your employees show up with customers, whether they're customer success, service, frontline salespeople, people in the operations that interact with customers over late orders, whatever it is. That's a direct impact where the behaviors of your employees are actually what create those peaks in the journey where there's a strong emotional connection. And that you can actually work explicitly on identifying what those emotional peaks are and what the behaviors are to drive it. In fact, I'll plug for a moment a course that I just launched with the CXPA. You can check out the website on screen to check out the course. It's all about a data-driven approach to CX, but nested within that is focusing on the right emotions and the right behaviors at the peaks in the journey. So there's a strong linkage to culture on this direct angle. An indirect angle is what Sean's talking about, which is that the way people collaborate and work together in the organization, their behaviors and the skills they bring are what create the experiences. So you're designing and working on and improving the experiences. So the indirect, being more agile, applying design thinking, applying quality management, applying lean approaches, all these disciplines are actually ways to behave a certain way more consistently across the organization, and all kind of row in the same direction with more speed. So I think that they're both really important, and love to get your guys' thoughts on, what do you think an Xer needs to do to build their talent stack and to be a better leader across these areas?
I'll jump in for a second and just share an anecdote that might answer your question very directly in a pretty blunt way. I found that, especially amongst big frontline organizations, think like contact center situations, employee engagement and ultimately employee retention is challenging, right? Getting these good folks to come to their job every day and commit to that job every day and work thoughtfully every day and ultimately keep that job. Retention is low, engagement is low. If you look at the Gallup numbers, it says 70% of the American workforce, whether they're in a contact center or otherwise, is somewhere between disengaged and actively disengaged at work. And that's a world of hurt when we get to those kind of numbers. And what I think is really going on is people don't feel enabled and empowered. And I think that they feel like they're being forced into a life at work that they don't like or respect. And they're forced to become people that they don't like in themselves or respect in themselves. And I think that the more that we can work with our team to kind of unlock their best selves when they are at work, the more that we can let them be creative about how they're doing things and with whom and when and where, as long as it's within a certain set of guardrails about what that means, I think the more we will see a positive impact. And if the more as Xers that we could begin to enable those organizations to think differently about the job description. And I can't recall if it was Nordstrom or if it was Saks Fifth Avenue, but one of the higher quality department stores was famous for having an employee manual. And that employee manual simply said, use your best judgment. That was the entire instruction they were given as new hires. If we don't trust you, we would never have hired you. Use your best judgment. And it'll unlock the level of commitment to service because it allowed the employee to be creative as to how they engaged. And that drove up engagement, and it drove up retention, it drove up quality.
Yeah, that's a great example of empowerment and training, and a strong cohesive culture allows you to push in a direction where people can use their common sense, their intuition, and they can bring their full selves, all their energy. But if you have that empowerment without the right behavior, without the right culture, it can go in the wrong direction. But obviously, if you combine it with other things, it can be really, really powerful.
Yeah, I like to say that culture is where people and process come together. Because again, it's about engagement. It's about creating a great working environment. That's the people side, open communication, from that perspective. But if you just rely on that alone and don't build process around it, everybody naturally, as humans, will end up in our silos doing our work, not even thinking about what other people do. That is human nature. The other side of it is our bosses don't necessarily think about, how do we share metrics with other departments, naturally. And so this is where if you have a great employee environment, but then you build processes around that, ways to communicate, almost, ways to measure collectively and in a shared way, if you reinforce the processes, now you start to have direction. Because to your point, and I kind of disagree with the statement of just use your best judgment, because you remember that story from Zappos where the agent spent 12 hours on a call with one customer because they were lonely, and even during breaks, transfer them to someone else and back. And even in that story, that the reality is you can't do that. I mean, that's, your best judgment may not be right. And so you also have to, from a process standpoint, have some level of boundaries of what that means as well. But this, again, this is where culture drives it. And again, I think that's what the new, CX is a, culture experience. It's more about driving that connection, because again, if everybody's got to do it, your culture has to reinforce that and bring that together.
I like to think that there's a bell curve, like a bell curve, that most of the people are in the middle, where they're exhibiting some of the behaviors some of the time. There are very few people who get it wrong all the time. They're at the left end of the curve. They're the ones that you need to get rid of, right? Or you need to really evaluate whether they're going to make it, right? And can you intervene and fix that? There's like a triple double here, which is the far right. You're double clicking. You're doubling down on the far right, with the ones who have all the behaviors all the time, to showcase them to everyone else. The ones in the middle, you're double clicking to understand what else can I do to get them to adopt the behaviors I want. And the ones on the left, you're doubling back to decide what to do about it. If you want to learn more about this philosophy and way of thinking, it's actually something I learned from Chris Taylor. So you can go check out the episode with Chris Taylor. He's the head of Actionable, which is a software platform for culture and habit building that I think is a great platform to use. So if you think about it, is that you want that middle group to do more of the consistency, the right behaviors more of the time. That allows you to beat expectations more consistently. And Mark, you're really good about talking about the importance of expectations. You want to elaborate on some of the thinking you shared on our roundtable about that, which I don't want to steal your thunder here.
No, there's expectations play a role across the board in every capacity, right? I mean, just take one small piece. Take we'll call it even just the notion of, let's make experiences easier for our customers, and what impact does easy have? I've historically had a bit of a gripe about just universal easy. And my gripe comes from the fact that there are experiences for customers, and there are experiences for employees, and there are experiences for whomever, that if we make them easy, but they're inherently simple, there's really very little reward for anybody in ease, because all it does is meet expectation. I thought it was going to be easy. You made it easy. Big deal. Conversely, if something is hard, but they're expecting hard because it's a complex thing, there's no real punishment for it being hard. So to say we need to universally make everything easy at all times is, I think, misleading. I think the opportunity comes along when we have to understand where there's a mismatch in expectation, where somebody's expecting easy but gets difficult. And therein is the problem.
Yeah. And I know that when you talk about that, and the challenge for all of us is everything almost naturally is hard. So yeah, the focus of being easy is really more around, things are hard. And this is where my book and my philosophy comes in. Why everything on my business is around rocks. It's finding the rocks in the journey that are causing the most pain, that are flipping the customer out of the boat, maybe having them take their boat and go to a different river that's a lot easier, a journey that's a lot easier, because those rocks, those pain points, are the ones that's impactful. But the challenge with that is those are also hard to find. Some of the worst kind of rocks are the ones right under the surface of the water that you don't see, but they're the most dangerous. And most of us in business are focused on only the things we see very easily. And so this is where, driving, analytics at scale, driving true data processes to bring all this together and then address them aggressively is a big, it's probably one of the bigger opportunities we have in this new day and age. It's one of the shifts that's occurring. Surveys, response rates are are horrible. People are tired of taking surveys. It's by default, you only get a small percentage that do it. Yet all that data now that we have available and AI to study it, will enable us to find those things, to drive opportunities to truly find and make the ROI that we always said we wanted to do. And you can't do that from surveys and from the more traditional CX activities. You have to make this shift forward into this new model, this new age, this new use of data and analytics and technology to drive real change, or be left behind.
Yeah, Sean is, I think, does a really good job, and I really encourage you guys to check out the 4Rocks book and our episode 25, but going deeper in the discussion about it, and to like and subscribe to the podcast to see those episodes in the future. I really connects for me this idea of continuous improvement, where you're spotting opportunities. So you have to have a way of spotting them. If you're not picking, if your head's up and you're looking over the horizon, you'll see certain things. But if you're not looking for where the rocks are, you won't start removing them. And then you need a combination of the bold bets and the brilliant basics. And so a lot of the focus on the removing the rocks is around not just fixing pain points. We're not advocating break, fix, and chasing pain points. It's actually fixing some of the root causes or things that prevent you from getting the right behaviors in the organization. To bring this back to culture, I talked a lot about behavior change and driving habit building and adoption of the right behaviors. But if you don't actually fix some of the underlying root causes that are process and data and tech, it's a bit like pushing on the string. So you need a balance between emphasis on behaviors and addressing root causes. If you only address root causes without addressing behavior, that's why culture eats strategy for breakfast, if you don't pay enough attention to culture. But if you focus on behavior adoption and training without addressing root causes, you'll have basically a lot of effort with little impact. So you need both.
Matt, from where I sit, we think of in experience management work that we all do. One of the activities that we as experience management professionals undertake really brings a lot of this to life, which is looking at building an understanding of the customer journey or the employee journey or any of these journeys, journey mapping. And one of the things you learn very quickly if you build enough journey maps is that the rocks tend to bubble up at the point where the siloed functional areas in a business touch each other, where it goes from this stage of a journey to this stage of a journey. And that moment in time where there's a handover is where the rocks, in my opinion, tend to bubble up more often than not, because we overemphasize the optimization of our own processes and our own silos, but it's where the silos connect. And I never saw this come to be more clearly than when I did one of my very first journey mapping workshops. And I brought people, this is pre-COVID, and we brought people into a room, a physical room, to sit down and talk about the journey mapping work from a company. And literally the people were saying things to one another in that room like, oh, you're the guy who does this before I do it, and then you're the guy who does it after me. And they had not met each other before and had any awareness nor appreciation for what those other components of the journey really were, even though they were adjacent to themselves.
This is an important thing, by the way, in the CX on the Rocks community, is that we're bringing a holistic perspective. This is something we talked about in a number of the roundtables that you can find on the CX on the Rocks website. The videos of those is bringing different multidisciplinary perspectives, like the data perspective, the tech perspective, the service perspective, the analytics perspective. There are different windows into it, not just like org silos, but functional disciplines, that different hats people wear, that you're actually better off bringing people together. And so an Xer needs to be a change agent, a collaborator, somebody who brings these groups together, who provides that holistic perspective. And Sean, I want to give you a chance to kind of elucidate which of the 4 rocks was Marc talking about.
Well, he's right, though. I mean, again, that's why the analogy is the journey is like a river, and the rapids more often are in between the channels. He used where the silos connect. I think the real answer is where the silos don't connect. That's where those rocks are, right? Because again, we're pretty good channel and task, but we're not good across the journey. But what I will say, and I want to pull kind of the thread of what you were talking about, Matt, about the community again, what we're doing. The point of this is, there are plenty of CX communities out there, and, we'll probably even partner with a few. Their definition of community is we'll give you a place to communicate with each other, like a Slack channel or something like that. Or the flip side of it is we'll do webinars, which are one directional. Our focus is on you as the participant. So not only will you get lessons learned every month from one of these experts on one of their specialties, but you'll also then get breakout rooms to volunteer and say, I want to go talk to somebody about journey mapping, or, hey, this week I want to talk to somebody about data and analytics or AI or whatever. So if you think about it, we're bringing together, potentially 8 to 10 to 12 experts in different fields. So we'll have a digital transformation person. We'll have a UX UI design person. We'll have journey mapping. We'll have data and analytics, culture, CX technology. We have in CCaaS and call center tech, but we're representing all of the different components of the experience and giving you access. So not only do you have this once a month meeting, but then you can set up follow-up time in those areas of interest to learn a little bit more, either in small groups or one-on-one. So again, it's about access to experts to drive the value to you as a member and as a participant of the community.
So I'll make this personal just to build on and elaborate what Sean was saying, to use myself as an example. And the same would apply for you guys with your own hat. When someone joins the community, and I'll be inviting people from my network, and clearly we're sharing about it on the podcast today as one of the ways to raise awareness of the community. We're excited about it all together, and we enjoy collaborating with each other. So when someone joins, if they have an interest in culture, I'm going to be giving, it's a gift for me, giving my time to new members to help them on board and get oriented in the community. And if they're interested in culture, I'm investing in you so you can have a good experience in the community. If we choose to work together beyond those initial meetings, that's wonderful if we have a good fit and interest to collaborate further. But I'm giving a gift to invest in the community, and the other experts are doing the same thing. So it's an incredible value for people to join and find people who have expertise and backgrounds that they can benefit from, to have conversations and get the most out of being in the community. And then together we'll make this community more powerful, because it's the networking power of us sharing. And I'm going to learn too from my other experts and from the members. So I'm excited to be part of it. The gift will keep giving. We'll all give to each other, and it'll get stronger. By the way, that phrase, the gift keeps moving, is like Seth Godin, Adam Grant, others. I didn't invent that. I just love it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think, again, and this is where going back to the why we did this, is today's experience is so much more complex than it's ever been. I mean, customers are communicating in dozens upon dozens of ways with you, from social to chatbots to chat to text to everything else. And again, we talked earlier, it's the space in between where the challenges lie. But as a Xer, as a professional driving change and real impact to your business, you've got to kind of understand everything at some level. Be a quasi-expert across the board at all these things. But most of us are just kind of, strong in one area or another. But it's, as Matt says, we're going to be learning, even as experts in certain areas, from our peers on those other areas as well. And we want you to learn with us. And that's the opportunity that we look for as well. But continuing down this, path of how do we round out this, this opportunity together, and where we're taking, where experience is taking us. The biggest thing I see coming out of this transition is going to be the need to drive physical change. We talked about financial. Mark, you mentioned just a little bit earlier. Financial impacts can be, ROI can be calculated in certain ways based on inferences and expectations, but making real specific change is key. And the reality is the Xer isn't going to make any of that change in their business. They're going to talk to the people who are doing it, who need to do it. And this is one of the challenges we see is a lot of Xers lost their job, and C-level executives said, well, it's all about data science and technology. We're going to make the IT team the CXer now. Wrong way to go. I mean, ultimately, IT is great at building widgets and things of that nature. They do not have the customer chops. They do not have the strategic component and the humanistic component of what it needs to be. And the Xer has to do that, and not just do it for them, but do it with the contact center, the website, and all the other groups as well.
There is a role for data analytics or IT to play in collaborating. CX is a team sport. I don't think any of us are saying that IT should not have a seat at the table or data. It's just that typically the marketing technology stack is a business-led decision where it's the chief customer, chief experience, chief digital, chief marketing, chief growth. They tend to be leading the charge with a business lens, collaborating with IT. And if there's a head of analytics, I work with a numbers of heads of analytics, which are great change agents for experience, to take a more data-driven approach to experience, more culture of experimentation. But they tend to report to the chief commercial officer as opposed to the CIO or their C-level chief analytics themselves. It's very rare that you have a CIO, CTO leading the charge on a business transformation. They're an enabler, not the driver.
Yeah, I speak at a lot of CX industry events. It's part of my business as a professional speaker is to kind of share the message and help all these communities and conferences and exchanges, et cetera, and summits. And I've had several times recently that, the event planners will come and say, hey, I've struggled to find CX, customer experience, in people's titles anymore. There's not as many out there, but we are seeing more transformation kind of titles, strategy and transformation. I'm seeing more of those. And to your point, those find different places in the business to be housed, but it's almost every time you house it somewhere else. Was it Valerie said on one of the panels, a lot are going to marketing, but marketing is where CX goes to die. I think it's what she said. And what she really meant was marketing is so focused on top of funnel, they're not always thinking about, the back end and the retention and so forth, because they have their own perception.
I think this is a nuanced point here, just to pile on here. We're not saying that experience is not a winning marketing strategy. Actually, I've seen through my involvement at the MMA Global, the marketing association, where I play a CX subject expert role, there's growing emphasis on experience as a winning marketing strategy. In fact, the research shows, if you look across commerce, brand, and experience, that companies who focus on experience actually do better financially. That's the outcomes. And lots of CMOs, actually episode 1 of this podcast was with Greg, who is the CEO of the MMA. And he said, I'm here to save marketing from marketers. He's a kind of joke he made about it. But he basically said, the people who are trying to focus on experience, now they have to figure out how to spend $1 billion on it. He's talking about very big companies that spend $1 billion on experience. So it's getting a lot of attention. It's a winning strategy, but it's not about surveys. So if you have a group that all it does is surveys, then it gets chopped to save expenses, because I'm not saying, by the way, you don't want surveys, but it's not enough. And so what's happening is, if you approach to, Mark said at the beginning of the podcast, like, if you focus on surveys, that's not where the action is. It's evolving to other areas. It's because you're focusing on mining unstructured data, mining operational data, getting into predictive analytics. These are all things beyond the survey. And there's a lot of opportunity there, which increasingly, if you mistakenly view that as a tech investment only, I can understand why you might move that over to the IT team to just say, oh, let's go cut the CX team and implement these new technologies. But you don't get value out of that without all the other people and process side of it that Sean was talking about. So you'll get a long road to a small house if you don't invest in things beyond the tech.
Real quick, just one thing to add to that. This is also, again, why, you know, we're focused on bringing this together for, you know, you as an audience who's listening, because the Xer going forward will be from marketing, potentially from IT, from a data analytics team, from the contact center, et cetera, right? That's the new reality. There was a time where we were kind of like, all right, let's build a CX team. Well, now it's being redistributed back to the business. So when we think about this CX on the Rocks community, it's not just for CX professionals. It's for anyone who needs to learn and understand the new age of experience for the customers. And so if you're from marketing, if you're from IT, if you're from any of these other departments, and you've got a role in creating experiences and you want to learn how to do it across and partner with others, join us too. That's another opportunity, is to bring your perspective in to the community and learn about these other avenues of the people you have to work with.
So I've definitely enjoyed our conversation. I hate to see the clock coming to the end of the hour and then need to wrap up, but we'll have lots of other opportunity to talk in our monthly community meetings. I'll encourage people again to go to CX on the Rocks and sign up. There's a short video there you can also see from Sean, which is a really great perspective on the people, process, and platform side that he talked about earlier. And you can also find these 3 videos with different panelists that Mark and I and Sean have been part with, along with the other experts, to start to hear from the other experts as well, and sign up so that you can join the initial meetings. Mark, Sean, any closing thoughts that you want to share with the community about, what you're excited about and where you want to lean in on this CX on the Rocks community?
Go ahead, Sean.
Well, I just said, you said it, Matt, a little earlier. Customer experience is a team sport. And the only way to do that is with a team, with people to work with. And so that's the opportunity. Come together, join us, learn, share, and be part of the community.
I think that's the old, was it an African saying about alone we go fast, together we go far? I think that we have an opportunity here to go far as part of this community. And I think that's the play, and for all of us to benefit in it.
Well, thank you both very much for joining. You sparked a lot of ideas for me. I hope you have for the audience as well. And looking forward to seeing many of you in the community discussions as we roll forward together. Thanks very much, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.